What's up guys, welcome back again to my channel. My name is Dami and I'm a YouTuber based in London, Ontario, Canada. If you're new to my channel, I share lifestyle and immigration content. Feel free to join this family by clicking on the subscribe button down below, and also don't forget to turn on post notification bell so you'll be the first to get my videos every single time that I post a video. Also feel free to check out some of my other content as well. If you're interested in videos like this, I have a ton of videos talking about how you can successfully move to Canada, especially as a student, and feel free to check them out before you go. All right, this is a quick disclaimer. I am not an immigration lawyer. I'm not an immigration consultant. I am not anything related to immigration. I only share my own experiences living in Canada and also how I was able to move to Canada and things that I have researched by myself that I think could help other people's journey to Canada. There are some questions that I probably will not be able to answer, but yeah, let's jump right into this video. So in today's video, I'll be talking about the actual amount it will cost you to study in Canada. From the point you start thinking about coming to Canada to the point where you land in Canada, how much it's going to cost you, how much that process would cost, and how much you should be budgeting. So this video will probably be useful for anybody that is already thinking about coming to Canada but doesn't really know how much the process costs or doesn't really know how much they should budget for this process. All the things I would say in today's video would be based on my own experiences when I was applying. And keep in mind that I applied to Canada, or I came to Canada about 3 years ago in 2020. And at the time I'm filming this video, it is year 2023, and some things may have changed, some prices may have changed as well. All the prices I'll be giving you today would be based off of my own experiences and how much I paid during my own time. I'll be talking today about the price points for people living in Nigeria because I came from Nigeria. When I wanted to apply to school in Canada, the first thing I did was to find out if I needed an English proficiency exam. And for me, I had taken an English proficiency exam before I even applied to come to Canada. So I would include this in this video, but you may not need it depending on your country. So if you're applying to come to Canada and you've lived all your life in an English-speaking country, or your previous education was from English-speaking countries, you may not need to do an English test. You may not need to do an English proficiency test because you can show your transcript saying that you took all your programs in English language, and they may be able to waive that English proficiency test from your requirements to apply to the school. I paid about 75,000 naira for English proficiency exam. I did the IELTS exam and I did it in Lagos, Nigeria. I believe that the price has changed a lot right now. I can't really say how much they do it right now, but if you're taking this test in Canada, I know that it's about $300 if you're taking it in Canada. So keep that in mind. There is also the CELPIP. I know CELPIP is also accepted in Canada. So the next thing you should already be thinking about getting is your transcript. So if you're coming to Canada for a postgraduate degree, you would most likely be required to get a transcript from your undergraduate degree. So let me give you guys a quick back story. I was processing to come to Canada as a permanent resident. I really wanted to come to Canada as a permanent resident. So I got a lot of my documentation even before I started thinking of coming to Canada as a student. So I got my English proficiency exam before I started thinking of coming to Canada as a student. I got my transcript from my school. I even got an ECA, which is Education Credential Evaluation. I got all those things before I even started thinking about coming to Canada, which made my process a bit faster. It could take a long time depending on the school you went to in your country. Some schools take time. My school did not take time because I went to a private university back in Nigeria. So it was, I think it probably took me about 2 weeks or less for me to get my transcript from my school. So you probably need to get a transcript from your school, and some schools will also require you to also get an education credential assessment, which just to show that the comparison between your previous program in your home country to what you want to study in Canada. So for instance, if you studied English in Nigeria, maybe you studied English from University of Lagos in Nigeria, and it was a 4-year program, they would want to make sure that it is accepted in Canada as well. At the time when I got my transcript, I can't remember if I paid my school to get my transcript, but if I had paid my school to get my transcript, I'm sure it would have been not too much money, maybe about 20,000 naira back then. I don't know about now. But for my credential evaluation that I did it with ICAS. You can either do with WES, you can do with ICES, you can do with ICAS. There's so many bodies that do credential evaluation here in Canada. I did mine with ICAS or ICES. I think ICES. I did mine with ICES, and I paid about 250 Canadian dollar as at the time I did it, which was 2019. I don't know if the price has changed now. You may need to check that for yourself. So after doing all this, then you need to reach out to the school to find out how much it's going to cost you to actually apply for the program that you're considering applying for. So most schools, I know that the application fee in Canada ranges between $75 to about $200, depending on the school, depending on the program that you want to apply for. So during my time, I paid $100. I think I paid $100 to apply for the program that I applied for in a college. I schooled in Fanshawe College in Canada, and I paid about $100 to apply for that program. So you need to reach out to your school, you need to check the application fee, but that's another fee that you need to put into consideration when you want to apply to Canada as well. Then the next thing does not apply to everybody. This is agency fee. So I'm all for you can do it yourself, but if you eventually do not do it yourself, you may need to pay an agent to package your application. If the school I was applying to, which was Fanshawe College at the time, they needed me to use an accredited agent to apply for the program that I wanted to apply for. So they gave me a list of agents that work with the school, and I contacted one of the agents on the list, the one that was in Nigeria, and I think I paid about 250,000 naira as at the time in 2019 for them to package my application. That 250,000 naira was supposed to be for them processing my admission and also for them to help me package my study visa application. But if you've been on this channel for the longest time, you know that I eventually packaged my study visa application by myself. I did the process myself, and the only thing the agent did for me was to help me with getting my admission from the school. If you're using an agent, that's another fee that you need to consider. And I know now that a lot of agents in Nigeria do not charge 250,000. From what I heard that agents now in Nigeria charge between 500,000 naira upwards. So be considering 500,000 naira to probably like $1 million naira, depending on the agency you're using. So now you've gotten your admission from the school, your school has given you the admission letter, and you've seen how much you're supposed to pay. So before you actually even get your admission letter, you already know the range of your school fee or your tuition fee. You know that, okay, this for each program or for each courses that you'll be taking, it's going to be like a specific amount of money that you'll be paying every semester. But when you get your admission letter, you see the actual full amount that you'll be paying for that program. My tuition fee was about 18,000 Canadian dollar at the time. I know that it has increased a little bit now, but I paid about 18,000 Canadian dollar for my international business management program at Fanshawe College. It's a 1-year program, and that was my 1-year tuition fee. So you need to consider that if you're applying for a 2-year program, that means you're paying your 1-year tuition fee multiplied by 2. So that's if my program was for 2 years, that means I'll be paying 18,000 multiplied by 2. So you need to put that into consideration as well. Most schools will give you the opportunity to pay maybe your first semester tuition first. For Fanshawe College, they gave me the opportunity to pay my first semester tuition fee, I think in the first month of me getting my admission. So after my admission letter came, they gave me about a month or 2 for me to gather my tuition fee and pay that fee. So once your tuition fee has been covered and you know that you already have your 18,000 Canadian dollar, the next thing now is for you to start your study permit application. So this is like the giant in the room. This is like the major thing in this whole process, because if you don't get your study permits, all the money you've put into this process becomes wasted. So you need to pay close attention to this part of this video. The first thing you need to put in mind is that applying for a study permit, it's not free. You need to pay for it. So the application fee for your study permit is about $150. That was what I paid during my time. I don't think I paid more than that. It may have increased now, but I am not sure it has. And the next thing you also need to pay is biometrics fee. So if you've never applied to Canada before, if you've never done biometrics before, you need to apply for that as well. You need to pay for that when you're applying for your study permit application. So that is $85. So biometrics fee is $85. So that would be $150 for study permit application and $85 for the biometrics fee. If you've done biometrics before and maybe you've come to Canada as a visitor, or you've applied to Canada before and you were rejected, you don't need to pay that $85 again. Your biometrics last for 10 years, so you only need to do biometrics for IRCC in Canada once in 10 years. You probably would not need to apply to do biometrics again if you get to Canada and you come to study, get your PR. You should be a citizen of Canada in less than 10 years, or about 10 years depending on your situation. So you probably won't need to pay that fee again till you become a citizen of Canada. So after that is done, you also need to do a medical exam. You'll be required to do a medical exam, and I think I paid about, I can't really say for sure right now. I tried getting this information, but I couldn't find it. I think I paid about maybe 100,000 naira. I don't want to say for sure, but you need to do a medical exam to make sure that you're fit to be in Canada and you don't have any medical situation that could be a negative impact to Canada. Before you even submit your study permit application, I skipped this part. You need to make sure that you have your living expense. So after I add my $10,000 tuition fee on ground, I also needed to have a living expense for a year. So Canada would need you to have living expense for a year, and 1 year living expense is 10,000 Canadian dollar. That's what they will tell you to have in your account. So you need to have this money. It has to be in your account. It's not something that you tell them that when you get to Canada you'd provide it or whatever. You need to have that money in your account sitting there before you submit your study permit application. So that money needs to be there. So that means my 18,000 Canadian dollar that I add for my tuition fee plus 10,000 Canadian dollar for my living expense for 1 year, which was 28,000 Canadian dollar. So that was the total amount that IRCC needed to see that I had in my account before I'll be able to submit a study permit application, and before they will be able to consider me for that study permit application. So after that, the next thing that you need to also provide is a police record certificate, and the price of this varies from country to country. It really depends on how much your country does this. When I applied for a police record certificate in Nigeria in 2020, I paid, I think, 6,000 naira or 7,000 naira. Now, if you want to apply for a police record certificate right now in Nigeria, just have like 45,000 naira to like 60,000 naira, depending on different factors. Especially if you need it really urgently and you need to like go into the place and get it immediately you go there, like on the same day, it would cost you probably anything from 40,000 naira to about 60,000 naira. It's crazy. When I had this, I was in shock. It's ridiculous, but yeah, that's it. You need to have your police record certificate done, and you need to check how much your country does this. Once you've done all this, you've submitted your study permit application. Now the wait begins, and you start waiting for it to be approved. So when your study permit application is approved, yay, that's good news. Then the next step for you is to start planning how to come to Canada, and this planning includes your flight ticket. So you do not need to book a two-way flight ticket. You only need to book a one-way flight ticket, and that the cost of that varies from country to country as well, depending on where you're coming from. I think I paid about 350,000 naira for me to come from Nigeria to Canada, and it depends on the time of the year, it depends on the period you're traveling, it depends on different factors as well, like I said, and also what country you're coming from. But aside that, you also need to put into consideration that you're going to buy things. You're going to buy like food stuff. You're going to buy different things that you want to bring to Canada to make your first period or your landing a bit more easy for you. And when I was coming to Canada, I bought a lot of Nigerian food stuff just because I knew that I would need it at the beginning of my stay in Canada, just to make sure that I have foods that I'm familiar with. So you need to put all those bills also into consideration. The amount I spent on buying food that I brought to Canada was ridiculously expensive. And thinking about how things are expensive across the world now, I know the price would even be worse. You need to also put that into consideration. And the next thing, which is also probably the final point that I will mention, is that you also need to put into consideration how much it would cost you for your landing accommodation. Some people are lucky to have gotten a place to stay, like they go online and they find an actual student accommodation that they would stay for the period of their study, and some other people do not find it easy at all. So some people need to like get Airbnbs or just like short-let accommodation that they would stay for like 2 months or a month during the period of time that they would get here, and they will start looking for a long-term accommodation. When I came to Canada, it was during COVID, and I needed to stay in an Airbnb. I needed to self-quarantine for 14 days. So I paid, I really can't remember the exact amount I paid, but it was probably less than $400, probably about $350 for my 14-day stay. But now accommodation is so expensive in Canada. Airbnb is really, really expensive in Canada now. So for Airbnb in Canada, you need to, if you're looking for a room in an apartment for an Airbnb, you probably need to budget between 60 Canadian dollars to about 250 Canadian dollars per day, depending on the kind of accommodation that you would like, or depending on the kind of accommodation that you want. So consider that as well. So consider that landing accommodation, just to make sure that you have a soft landing and you don't get here and you're stranded at the airport. If you have family in Canada, after you've gotten your study permit approved, that is the perfect time to start reaching out to those family members for them to accommodate you, maybe for the first week or for the first month that you land in Canada. And then that period of time you can use it for your running around and trying to get accommodation for yourself, because trust me, it can be very difficult and challenging to get an accommodation in Canada. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. It helps my video a lot. Also send this video to some of your family, some of your friends that may probably need this video, or are already planning on coming to Canada but don't know how much it costs. This is a rough estimate of how much you should be considering when you're planning on coming to Canada. Like I said in the beginning of this video, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. Also watch some of my other videos, because it may be impactful for you as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.